Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Exploring the Bible with Dave. I'm your host, Dave, and today we're going to start on chapter 22, Parable of the Great Feast. But before I do so, I want to thank you all for watching this video. Don't forget to comment and like and subscribe. Don't forget also to share this video. I'm hoping to reach as many people as I can, those who haven't read the Bible, or those who have read the Bible and they want to kind of get a little bit of a refresher, or maybe they want to hear a new voice kind of read out to them. I've decided to make this my life's mission, to read 3 chapters a day from the New Testament and the Old Testament. And then afterwards, when that's all said and done, I want to kind of start a Bible study. I think that'll be a lot of fun. I also like hearing your guys' comments, and I love having conversations with you people, because there's a few people out there on the YouTube channel who are amazing people who help explain everything of the chapters that I've read. They're really good folks who know a lot, and they also help with the name pronunciations that I seem to always have issues with. Because, like I said before, this is my first time reading it through. I never did any Bible study or went to Bible classes or anything like that. And I find this stuff very interesting. And to those folks, I want to say thank you so much. And I want to also say thank you for everybody, my 11 subscribers. You guys are amazing. So with that being said, we're going to start on chapter 2, Parable of the Great Feast. And let's begin, shall we? Jesus also told them other parables. He said the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a king who prepared a great wedding feast for his son. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servants to notify those who were invited, but they all refused to come. So he sent other servants to tell them, "The feast has been prepared. The bulls and fattened cattle have been killed, and everything is ready. Come to the banquet." But the guests he had invited ignored them and went their own way, one of his farm, another to his business. Others seized his messengers, insulted them, and killed them. The king was furious. He sent out his army to destroy the murderers and burn their town. And he said to his servants, "The wedding feast is ready, and the guests I invited aren't worthy of the honor. Now go out to the street corners and invite everyone you see." So the servants brought in everyone they could find, good and bad alike, and the banquet hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to meet the guests, he noticed a man who wasn't wearing the proper clothes for a wedding. "Friend," he asked, "how is it that you are here without wedding clothes?" But the man had no reply. And the king said to his aides, "Bind his hands and feet and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen." Taxes for Caesar. When the Pharisees met together to plot how to trap Jesus into saying something for which he could be arrested, they sent some of their disciples along with the supporters of Herod to meet with him. "Teacher," they said, "we know how honest you are. You teach the way of God truthfully. You are impartial and don't play favorites. Now tell us what you think about this. Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" But Jesus knew their evil motives. "You hypocrites," he said, "why are you trying to trap me? Here, show me the coin used for the tax." When they handed him a Roman coin, he asked, "Whose picture and title are stamped on it?" "Caesar's," they replied. "Well then," he said, "give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God." His reply amazed them, and they went away. Discussion about the resurrection. That same day, Jesus had was approached by some Sadducees, religious leaders who say there is no resurrection from the dead. They posed this question: "Teacher, Moses said if a man dies without children, his brother should marry the widow and have a child who will carry on the brother's name. Well, suppose there were 7 brothers. The oldest one married and then died without children, so his brother married the widow, but the second brother also died. And the third brother married her. This continued with all 7 of them. Last of all, the woman also died. So tell us, whose wife will she be in the resurrection? For all 7 were married to her." Jesus replied, "Your mistake is that you don't know the scriptures, and you don't know the power of God. For when the dead rise, they will neither marry nor be given in marriage. In this respect, they will be like the angels in heaven. But now, as to whether there will be a resurrection of the dead, haven't you ever read about this in the scriptures? Long after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had died, God said, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So he is the God of the living, not the dead. When the crowds heard him, they were astounded at his teachings. The most important commandment. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees with his reply, they met together to question him again. One of them, an expert in religious law, tried to trap him with this question. Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? Jesus replied, You must love your Lord, your God, with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. Whose son is the Messiah? Then, surrounded by the Pharisees, Jesus asked them a question. What do you think about the Messiah? Whose son is he? They replied, He is the son of David. Jesus replied, Then why does David, speaking under the inspiration of the Spirit, call the Messiah my Lord? For David said, The Lord said to my Lord, Sit in the place of honor at my right hand until I humble your enemies beneath your feet. Since David called the Messiah my Lord, how can the Messiah be his son? No one could answer him. And after that, no one dared to ask him any more questions. Jesus criticizes the religious leaders. We're on the chapter 3 right now. I just want to kind of take a break here. I actually liked the taxes for Caesar because that actually makes a lot of sense. Whatever has your name on it belongs to you. And I love how they were trying to turn it against him to try to make him say that, to break the law into saying that, it belongs to the people, not to Caesar. I like how they kind of turned that around. I do like the parable of the Great Feast because I think, honestly, the man throwing the wedding is kind of a jerk because, you can't expect somebody to be prepared for a wedding right off the hop or prepared for an event right off the hop without much notice to prepare. And I actually think that's actually really good, though, because that talks a lot about, just because you invite some, stuff at the last minute you can't prepare for, so it's not technically their fault. It's your fault for having such high expectations. I know I probably got that wrong. But I kind of like that one. I know somebody will correct me, and But moving on, I'm going to be reading chapter 23. Jesus criticizes the religious leaders. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, The teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example, for they don't practice what they teach. They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. Everything they do is for show. On their arms they wear extra-wide prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra-long tassels. And they love to sit at the head of table at banquets and in the seats of honor in the synagogues. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplaces and to be called rabbi. Don't let anyone call you rabbi, for you have only one teacher and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. And don't address anyone here on earth as father, for only God in heaven is your spiritual father. And don't let anyone call you teacher, for you only have one teacher, the Messiah. The greatest among you must be a servant, but those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and your Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You won't go in yourselves, and you don't let others enter either. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cross land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn the person into twice the child of hell. You yourselves are. Blind guides, what sorrow awaits you, for you say that it means nothing to swear by God's temple, but that is the binding to swear by the gold in the temple. Blind fools, which is more important, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And you say that to swear by the altar is not binding, but to swear by the gifts of the altar is binding. How blind! For which is more important, the gift on the altar or the altar that makes the gift sacrifice? When you swear by the altar, you are swearing by it and by everything on it. And when you swear by the temple, you are swearing by it and by God who lives in it. And when you swear by heaven, you are swearing by the throne of God and by God who sits on the throne. What sorrow awaits you teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore the more important aspects of the law: justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Blind guides, you strain your waters so you won't accidentally swallow a gnat, but you swallow low a camel. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisees, first wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean too. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly you look like religious people, but inwardly your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you build tombs for the prophets and your ancestors killed, and you decorate the monuments of the godly people your ancestors destroyed. And you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would never have joined them in killing the prophets. But in saying that, you testify against yourselves that you are indeed the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead and finish what your ancestors started. Snakes, sons of vipers, how will you escape the judgment of hell? Therefore I am sending you prophets and wise men and teachers of religious law, but you will kill some by crucifixion, and you will flog others with whips in your synagogues, chasing them from city to city. As a result, you will be held responsible for the murder of all godly people of all time, from the murder of the righteous Abel to the murder of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you killed in the temple between the sanctuary and the altar. I tell you the truth, this judgment will fall on this very generation. Now I'm going to stop right there. I actually love this chapter because you can look at all the televangelists, you can look at all the big mega super churches, all the millions they make. I forget the name of that one guy who said like God or Jesus wanted him to fly in a G6 or a G7 private jet, $20 million plane, I believe it was. Correct me if I'm wrong. These people are exactly what he's talking about in the Bible in chapter 23. And I think a lot of the people that donate money to these people really never read chapter 23 in the book of Matthew. I actually think it's actually really, really in-depth, and I'm surprised people don't even see that today. But I do understand people are very desperate for answers. You got sick people that are desperate for answers. They want that feeling that that everything's gonna be okay. And it's really sad. It's honestly really, really sad that people like the mega church pastors. I don't want to name any names because I don't want to get in any trouble or anything like that. But that's all they care about is money, and they use everything. But I've always wondered, because I don't watch those televangelists that try to make all that money, if they've ever used chapter 23 in the book of Matthew. I'm actually really curious about that. Maybe somebody could tell me. I'm not going to look it up because I don't want to give them ad revenue on YouTube. Maybe I'll do it. Why not? But I find that to be very fascinating. It's actually really good. Now I'm going to move on to the last parable in this chapter. Jesus grieves over Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers. How often I have wanted to gather your children together, and as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings. But you wouldn't let me, and now look, your house is abandoned and desolate. For I tell you this, you will never see me again until you say, blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Chapter 24, Jesus foretells the future. As Jesus was leaving the temple grounds, his disciples pointed out to him the various temple buildings. But he responded, do you see all these buildings? I tell you the truth, they will be completely demolished. Not one stone will be left on the top of another. Later Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. His disciples came to him privately and said, tell us, when will all this happen? What sign will signal your return and the end of the world? Jesus told them, don't let anyone mislead you, for many will come into come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah. They will deceive many, and you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world, but all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come. Then you will be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You'll be hated all over the world because you are my followers, and many will turn away from me, and betray and hate each other, as many false prophets will appear and will deceive many people. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved, and the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world, and so that all nations will hear it, and then the end will come. The day is coming when you will see what Daniel the prophet spoke about, the sacrilegious object that causes desecration. Standing in the holy place, reader, pay attention. That's what it says in it's all hyphenated there. Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out of the deck of a roof must not go into the house to pack. A person on the field must not return even to get a coat. How terrible it will be for the pregnant woman and for nursing mothers in those days. Pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath, for there will be greater anguish than any time since the world began, and it will never be so great again. In fact, unless the time is calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive, but it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. Then if anyone tells you, look, here is the Messiah, or there he is, don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. See, I have warned you about this ahead of time. So if someone tells you, look, the Messiah is out in the desert, don't bother to go and look. Or look, he is hiding here, don't believe it. For as the lightning flashes in the east and shines to the west, so it will be when the Son of Man comes. Just as the gathering of vultures shows there is a carcass nearby, so these signs indicate that the end is near. Immediately after the anguish of these days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will give no light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. And then, at last, the sign that the Son of Man is coming will appear in the heavens, and there will be deep mourning among all the peoples of the earth. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with great power and glory. And he will send out his angels with the mighty blast of a trumpet, and they will gather his chosen ones from all over the world, from the furthest ends of the earth and heaven. Now learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, you can know his return is very near. Right at the door, I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass from the scene until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. However, no one knows the day or hour when these things will happen, not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows. When the Son of Man returns, it will be like it was in Noah's day. In those days before the flood, the people were enjoying banquets and parties and weddings right up to the time Noah entered the boat. People didn't realize what was going to happen until the flood came and swept them all away. That is the way it will be when the Son of Man comes. 2 men will be working together in the field, one will be taken, the other left. Two women will be grinding flour at the mill, one will be taken and one will be left. So 2 must keep watch, for you don't know what day your Lord is coming. Understand this, if a homeowner knew exactly when a burglar was coming, he would keep watch and not permit his house to be broken into. You also must be ready at the time, for the Son of Man will come when least expected. A faithful, sensible servant is one to whom the master can give the responsibility of managing his other household servants and feeding them. If the master returns and finds that the servant has done a good job, there will be a reward. I tell you the truth, the master will put the servant in charge of all that he owns. But what if the servant is evil and thinks my master won't be back for a while, and he begins beating the other servants, partying and getting drunk? The master will return unannounced and unexpected, and he will cut the servant to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In the place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And that ends chapter 24. I do like this chapter. I don't like it as much as the other one, and I don't know, maybe because the other one I thought was actually quite amusing. But I will say this, though. I shouldn't have said I didn't like it. But I do like the fact that it does talk about, if you think about the Left Behind series, which I've never watched before, basically, because I just never was interested. But I actually do like some of these parables. The last one I was reading was basically the whole Left Behind, like I was saying earlier, where the chosen ones would be taken up, and the ones who weren't would be left behind. I find it to be actually quite interesting to think about that, because it's basically you'll never know what's going on, but at the end of the day, when it's time, the good will be taken, the bad will be left to live on Earth in horrid conditions. And when you look around the world we live in today, you sort of kind of hope that happens, because you got those people that try to be famous on the internet, or those or rioters or protesters and stuff like that, depending on what they're protesting. But there's a lot of chaos in this world, and sometimes you just kind of wonder what it's going to be like if this does happen, or when it does happen, depending on your viewpoint. Because I know there's a lot of variables and differences in several Christians and Christian groups and whatnot. So, and like I said before, I don't belong to any religious denomination or anything like that. I'm just reading the Bible for because I was interested in it, because I got this free Bible from the Gideons. But I'm actually really enjoying doing these videos. It is actually really compelling for me to do these videos, and I'm almost, like, I don't want to sound weird or anything like that, but I'm actually quite addicted to it. I actually find it to be very, very interesting. And if that means doing this, reading the Bible 3 chapters a day, then so be it. I'll do it till the day I die. My favorite parable, excuse me, I have to get that. I have to take some minute to drink. I got a frog in my throat. Ugh. Okay, so my favorite parable was about false prophets and messiahs claiming they know all the answers. The mega churches. That's what I made the connection to. I thought that was actually really well done. I'm actually quite curious, because you see all this stuff with that one guy, and I guess that rapper or hip hop artist Kanye West is claiming that, God made him the greatest artist in the world. I was reading this yesterday. It was with that mega church guy who, the one that wouldn't open his doors for the flood victims or whatnot. Like he had like he locked up the doors and stuff, and everybody was criticizing him for it. That fool. I don't know if I should be saying that, but that guy was just, don't even get me started on what I think about that guy. But you look at all this stuff that's going on with him and Kanye West doing like this, Bible tour and stuff, and it's all great and all. You can go on tour and read the Bible and stuff like that, but you should do it for free. Like do it for free. Don't go to a mega church and preach and stuff like that when these people have to pay an admission fee. It's just absurd. It's honestly absurd. The Bible's free. You go to a church, or you contact a Bible organization that gives them away. It's free. You don't even pay shipping. That's the way the Bible should be. That's the way all religion should be. You shouldn't have to pay to get in. If I go to a church like just down the road over here, will I have to pay to get in? Is there an entry fee? Do I get my hand stamped so I can come back if I want to go outside for a cigarette? It just seems weird, and it just seems like when you have to pay for something to get into it, then it's not really a religion. Then it's just a concert. You're paying for a concert experience. Somebody who's just putting on a show, who tries to milk you for everything it's worth, so that you could throw a couple extra dollars into the donation plate after. On top of that, you having to pay for parking and having to pay for admission. And for me, that's just sickening. If I were to ever start a church or anything like that, everything would be free. Donations would be for like the food bank. If I ever, I was telling this to a friend of mine actually. If I ever received money out of this, I would not even keep a cent, because I don't want to be lumped into that same group of people. The charlatans, those types. The ones who profit off Christianity, in my opinion, aren't real Christians. They're not even real religious people. They're just in it for a quick buck. And I understand if you need to, the money to maintain your church, or to print more Bibles, or for good causes like that. That's different. But when you're buying yourself like $20 million jets, and like vacation homes in Palm Springs, and having extramarital affairs with women who are like in their 20s and you're like 70, for me that's just doesn't seem right. I don't understand people sometimes. But if I were to ever start something like that, or somebody was ever like, "Hey, can I donate?" I'll be like, "Sure." I'll just donate it back to like a notable cause, and then post the tax receipts, because for me personally, anyone who tries to profit off religion is just a fool in my books, because it's free for the people. You shouldn't have to charge, for trying to help people. Helping people should be free, and your reward should be the satisfaction of knowing that you've made a difference, and that you gave somebody a helping hand in their dire time of need on this planet. That's the way I look at it. I guess a lot of people don't. So, with that being said, I want to thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for watching these videos, or this video, I should say. Comment, like, subscribe. Please spread the word. I'm just doing this for the sake of fun, and the sake to educate myself and to educate those who haven't discovered the good book yet. So please do that. And I also have a Twitter and a Reddit and an archive.org. So if YouTube takes any of these videos down, you could always come to archive.org and listen for free, because that's what these videos are. They're for free. And I was contemplating doing a podcast and just uploading the audio to them, or maybe just doing like an actual podcast and talk about my adventures into reading the Bible, or maybe doing a Bible study, because I was thinking about doing a Bible study video series next. I don't know. If you guys will be interested in that, please let me know. But I'm going way over my time limit, so have a wonderful day, guys, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.